Good morning. Welcome. Welcome to the live stream. My name is Angela. Today is Thursday, March 26th. How's it going? I'm a front-end developer and a software engineer in St. Paul, Minnesota. And on this channel, we practice vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It's not because we don't think libraries or frameworks are important. We just like to practice the basics. Personally, I love practicing the basics. I do, at this point, almost all of my projects, vanilla, personal projects, that is. Certainly if you are a client or a freelance client, the project itself determines what you use, right? Not just what you're comfortable with, but the project itself. And right now, this is my vanilla era, and I like it. And I want to promote vanilla to as many front-end developers, whether you're new or you're an established developer. If you have a desire to be better at vanilla CSS in particular, right? Understanding the three things that the browser renders natively: HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Vanilla CSS, do a couple of projects with vanilla CSS. Just two. Do two. See if you don't start to develop a better understanding of user agent style sheets, specificity, inheritance. These things are really critically important to understanding good CSS. And if you have a hard time with that, if you have a desire to be better at it and learn, just do a couple of vanilla projects. You can watch tutorials, you can take courses. Nothing is going to beat a couple of good projects, right? That's my recommendation, and it worked for me. I've been doing this for almost 13 years. I was a pretty loyal Sass user for over a decade, and I mean, certainly I learned vanilla CSS first, then I started using Sass, but it was at the beginning of not even my career, just at the beginning of my learning. And what I discovered is that I really didn't have a solid grasp of specificity and inheritance. My scoping was out of control. My Sass nesting was out of control. Once I made the decision last summer to just go all vanilla on this channel, that was one of the best decisions that I could have ever made. And honestly, that decision, if I'm being perfectly honest, that decision was made out of the fact that I was trying to make tutorials, which I've since abandoned because I hate making tutorials. There are so many people, so many channels out there doing it much better than I could. But I made a handful of tutorials, and I was doing some CSS tutorials, and I got to the Sass part, and I was like, what do I need to explain here? I have to explain Node and installing Sass globally and running a Sass watch. And also Sass is just going through so many changes that I hadn't been keeping up with. The way you write functions and includes and how you import files, all of that was changing, and I hadn't been keeping up with it. And I thought, how can I do Sass tutorials if I'm not explaining some of these core Sass concepts? And so part of me was like, I just didn't have a deep desire to keep up with it anymore because I had done a couple of vanilla projects and I liked it. I didn't like it at first, but I had subscribers who asked me to do it, and I was like, oh, maybe I actually do kind of enjoy this. So then I decided to just be an all vanilla channel, and it was the best decision that I've ever made. I mean, I look at things I did even just a year ago, and I'm shocked at how I was writing CSS compared to now. And the great thing about streaming these projects is that I'm starting and finishing projects very quickly. And the projects aren't huge. They're like one-page landing pages. We've sort of graduated now into doing maybe 3 or 4 or 5 page static websites, small websites certainly. But I'm still getting those done really quickly, especially since I doubled my stream time in 2026. I feel like I'm just blasting through projects. And because I have the chance to constantly iterate through my process, iterate through that system of what works and doesn't work, my CSS skills have improved more in the last year than I think they have in the last 10 years. I just can't stress enough how project-based learning is invaluable. I mean, I've always thought that, but now I feel like I just am proving it to myself over and over and over again. project-based learning, man. There's just no other way to go. And I'm not ready. So we got to pull some stuff up here, and we'll say hello to the chat. Let me start pulling up some files. My apologies. I was up doing something else this morning. Oh, in one moment, please. Hold, please. I have a runny nose. My Mr. Coffee machine died this week, so I'm making coffee like a caveman, where I have to boil water, mix it with grounds, pour it through a strainer. So I get a little bit, there's a little extra here on the bottom. Luckily it settles, so it's still drinkable. And honestly, it's delicious, so I'm not exactly complaining, but I'm used to the routine of my Mr. Coffee machine. So there's that. Okay. I'm excited to start working on this today. I feel like we made such good progress. I was sort of toying with the idea of streaming last night to just work on the layout, and I decided not to, just because it was such a beautiful day yesterday and I had some other things that I wanted to do, and I think that we're doing just fine time-wise. And Malik Robinson, Malik is our Gogo Elmo is our mod in the chat. Welcome. Roha, am I saying your name correctly? Roha Chan. Please tell me if I'm saying that correctly. And yes, Roha Chan, I met over on Christian Codes. Roha is a mod on the Christian Codes channel, and paid me the best compliment that you can pay a small YouTuber is, I can't believe you don't have more subscribers. I love that so much. I mean, I get a lot of very nice compliments, but that's my favorite. So I just love that so much. Yeah. And the last few days, I have to say the last few, and then we have, I'm sorry, MLS Andreas. Andreas is here. Hello, welcome. We're so happy to have you. Yes, that is correct. Okay, good. I don't like mispronouncing names, so I like it when people give me the phonetics of what I'm supposed to say, what I'm supposed to do. So, okay, so here's where we are with our 30 days. Maybe I should I digress for just a moment here and remind people what it is that we're actually doing? I'll start with this. First of all, welcome. If you're new here, subscribe if you haven't already. Like the video if you haven't already. It helps the algorithm. It helps push this out to more people who might enjoy this type of content. The channel is growing. I appreciate everybody who subscribes. We're almost monetized. I feel very confident about getting monetized within the next month or so, the next 30 days. We're very close. So I appreciate everybody who likes and subscribes and hangs out in the chat. You guys are the reason the channel is growing, and I appreciate that. We're working on a project called 30 Days of Vanilla JavaScript. We are building a website for the challenge that starts April 1st. So I'm going to stream every day during the month of April. We are going to ask ChatGPT for a prompt, and it's specifically so we can improve our JavaScript skills. So I can improve my JavaScript skills, which I think have come a long way in the last year. I say this every year, Angela, you need to work harder on your JavaScript. And I already see improvements in my own JavaScript in the last year, which I'm very pleased with. So this whole project is to just like lock in for 30 days and really get that practice in. ChatGPT is a great tool for this because I explained what the project was, and it already gave us the first 10 tasks or the first 10 prompts, so we could style ahead of time those UIs, and then at the end of each day in April, we're going to deploy what the prompt was, the finished code, and the UI that goes with that code. We're going to deploy that to 30 Days of JavaScript, 30 Days of Vanilla JavaScript.com. So from now until the 31st, we're going to keep working on the UI and finish this site. On the 31st, March 31st, we're going to have deployment day. Deployment day is what we do at the end of every single project, where we set up a LAMP stack on DigitalOcean. That's the hosting provider that I like to use. LAMP is Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP. That is my stack that I like to use for static websites. I've also got the flexibility of using a little PHP for templating, because I do enjoy occasionally using PHP in some of my personal projects for templating. And it's just a good basic stack, very solid. We get a little practice on the terminal. We get a little practice with Apache. We'll modify our DNS settings to point to that IP address. We'll install an SSL certificate. We're going to be working in the Apache files, the Apache virtual host files for port 80 and port 443. It's a barrel of monkeys. It's a lot of fun, okay? Come and hang out with us on deployment day. We're going to get 30 Days of Vanilla JavaScript.com online, and then we'll have our deployment process set up. So at the end of every stream in April, we can just deploy. We have a site, we have a place for this to go. And hopefully this could help other people who are trying to learn vanilla JavaScript, right? So that's the plan, and I hope that you can hang out with me in April. I'm very excited about it. I wouldn't say I'm nervous about streaming every day for 30 days, because I've done sprints. I've done like 5 and 6 day sprints, and you definitely get used to it. Pro tip, take a shower before you go to bed at night. That makes getting ready in the morning much, much easier. I've like cleared my calendar of any appointments, anything for the month of April, because I am very serious about this project and this challenge for myself and for you. So there's that. And let's see here. I have a comment. I feel like people are so reliant on frameworks today. Less more than often is much more. It's lovely to see your excitement with actual programming, not the tools. Well, thank you. I appreciate that compliment. I'll say this. I know that we'll take React and Tailwind in particular, right? Because I think that those are the big two that people are really into right now. I know that those are wildly popular. A lot of organizations are using React and Tailwind, and I understand why. I understand why that consistency is important in an organization, and I understand why you should not be building enterprise level web apps static. That could be messy. I could see why that is not a smart thing to do. Tailwind in particular, if you're a dev, if you're a full stack dev who doesn't enjoy CSS, wow, I'm having trouble talking today. If you're a full stack dev who doesn't enjoy CSS, and many do not, frameworks and libraries, things like Tailwind, are wildly helpful. They keep the project consistent. If you've ever working on a big enterprise site that could be years old, maybe a decade old, that was built vanilla and just had the churn, the attrition of developers who really didn't like CSS, and were just trying to make the button blue or get the layout to do the thing or whatever, it's messy. It's very messy. Tailwind solves those problems, so I absolutely see their value. My only point is, let's not forget that in front end, there are 3 things that the browser does natively: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And I still think it's important to understand how to do those 3 things. I really do. You may not have a desire to do those things. Cool, I totally get it. But if you do, just try a couple vanilla projects. It'll help you. I love to use the example of being a new developer in a new organization or agency. Whether you're a junior developer or you're just new to the team, most of the time, you're going to be given the backlog tasks, the things that are important enough to sit in the backlog, but maybe not important enough to carve out time for your more senior experienced devs to work on. They still need to get done at some point, and organizations save that stuff for the new guy. So if you're a junior developer or just a new developer, you're going to get legacy code, especially in agencies. I don't think people realize what really goes on in an agency. Yes, agencies are building new websites, but once that site is built, they're almost always selling a maintenance package to the client where they're doing hosting, updates, keeping the server up to date, and helping with content and images. They'll allot a certain number of hours throughout a month for content and images, or building a new module, or adding a new script, or whatever. You could be a new person in an agency working on a legacy site that's all vanilla. And if all you know is Tailwind, what are you going to do? How are you going to deal with that? I'm here to tell you it is in your best interest to learn how to do this. Also, let's not forget the fact that maybe you're new in an organization and you're building landing pages for the marketing team. You're going to use Tailwind for landing pages. One page with a hero, a content section, and a form. You're going to use Tailwind for that. Do you need Tailwind Foundation or Bootstrap for a one-page landing page? Now, I don't know your structure. Maybe you've got like a whole WordPress multi-site setup thing going. I don't know. But it's a simpler solution for simpler problems, right? You don't need a framework or a library for simple problems and simple solutions. I'm just saying, this is my personal philosophy. If you disagree, let me know. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to have this conversation. I have a lot of experience. I've been doing this now for about 13 years. I've worked in organizations. My last job was at the University of St. Thomas. I was the manager of front-end development. I am a front-end developer, but let's be real. I've done a lot of full stack stuff. Lots of WordPress, lots of DevOps, lots of custom CMSs. There are a lot of CMSs out there. The last CMS I worked in for 7 years was built on Velocity, which is a Java-based templating. So I know how to do a lot of stuff, and I've been in a lot of situations. I've worked in a lot of agencies. I've been around the block. So I'm happy to have this conversation, and I'm happy to promote vanilla based on my own experience, because trust me, frameworks and libraries, they come and go. Today, it's React and Tailwind. Next year, 5 years from now, the one thing that's going to be the same is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Learn the framework, learn the library if it helps you get a job, of course, but also learn how to do the things that the internet actually runs on. So, okay. You see how easy it is to get me started? But I love it. I love it. Okay, let's go back to work. And thank you for the comment. Appreciate you. So here's where we left off on Tuesday last week. We styled our buttons. This is our counter module. We styled our text area. One of our challenges is going to be a character count text area limit. And here's our accordions. And here's where I was feeling very pleased with myself on Tuesday. I was like, Angela, you know how to do more than you are giving yourself credit for. Because I styled these accordions knowing the exact approach that I would be taking in order to complete this challenge. So here's the approach. We have an H3 with a button. Each accordion is an item. We've got an H3 with a button, and we've got our panel. And I styled this so when we write the JavaScript, we are going to for each through these accordion items. We're going to click on the button, and we are going to add an active class to the parent container. And we've already done our CSS to open and close these panels. And we tried a couple different techniques to animate or transition the panels. Yes, you can do those things with JavaScript. My philosophy is that you should always be doing anything that you can do with CSS, you should do with CSS. It is almost always going to be a better approach to have click events where you add a class and you do the thing. And that's exactly what we're doing here. And we used, let's see here. I'll do this again. Of course, we don't have the JavaScript, so I'm just doing everything in the browser. We are just going to use an active class. When there's an active class, we are transitioning from visibility, hidden, and max height 0. I'll make this a little bigger. Visibility, hidden, max height 0 to visibility, visible, max height 1,000 pixels. Certainly, if your content is going to be greater than 1,000 pixels, you'll have to adjust this. And it's not the smoothest transition I've ever seen, but it works. I'm happy with it. And believe me, we tried several different things. We worked on this for quite a bit on Tuesday, so I'm very happy with the solution that we came up with. Now, visibility is really important because when that panel is closed, visibility hidden will also hide it from a screen reader. And it will hide it from a screen reader and it will hide it from keyboard focus. So let's refresh the page. And I'm going to give the text area focus and then I'm going to tab. Tab, tab. So what's happening here? The tab is going right past that panel. And that's what we want. Let's do this. I want to demonstrate. So here's our accordion panel. Let's put a link in here because links and buttons by default are getting, by default, get focus. So now let's open this accordion item. So we already know that keyboard focus is going to go past this because it's visibility hidden. So if we go to this panel and we undo that visibility hidden, so now you're going to see it. And we have a link in here. It goes to that link. It's behind the panel, but it goes to that link, then it goes to the tab. That's not what we want. We want to make sure that we are skipping that panel. That panel is visibility hidden. Why? Because the user, the expected behavior, it's the same on desktop as is for keyboard focus as it is for a screen reader. The user decides if they want to interact with the button and to show the panel, just like on desktop. Do I want to see the panel? No, I don't have to click the button. It's the same accessibility for a screen reader and a keyboard navigation. So let's go ahead and put in active. Now it's open. And it goes into the panel and gives focus to whatever is happening inside that panel, if there is something that has focus. Not everything inside the panel may have focus, but if there is focus, the screen reader, we know now, is entering into the panel to see what's in there. And then we go to the next panel. And then, of course, this panel is visibility hidden, so it skips it, and we go right past it. So hopefully that makes sense to you. So we're trying to be very accessibility minded here. And yeah, I mean, I'll admit that this is like when we ended on Tuesday, I was like, you know more about what you're doing than you think you are. I don't think that I have so I think my problem with JavaScript is that I don't write it as quickly as I write CSS or HTML, or I don't have the level of understanding that I have maybe around accessibility and SEO. That's just a semantics problem. That's just a practice problem. It's not that I don't understand JavaScript or that I don't understand front end. It's just that I don't write it as fast because I don't do it as often. There is still a deep level of understanding here. So I'm enjoying this exercise and I'm enjoying the fact that I'm like, actually, you do kind of know what you're doing. So, and I get it. This is like the third day 3 challenge. So maybe I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but this is giving me confidence in an area where I typically don't have confidence, is what I'm trying to say. So, okay. So let's do a couple of things before we move on to this modal trigger. We've got decrease and increase. Let's replace these. Well, we're not going to replace these, but we're going to add a plus and a minus button. And then let's add a plus button here that shifts 45 degrees when the panel is open. So let's go and get our SVGs. I like to use ionicons. And we need a plus. We'll do this one right here. Yep, we'll put that right there. And we need a minus. Okay. All right, here is our plus. Yeah, we're going to make some layout changes. I'm not going to worry about it today, but we are going to make some layout changes here. So this is the add button. So we're going to put it right inside our button element. And this is going to be aria hidden true. We don't want to read that SVG out to a screen reader. I don't want the word increase to show, so we're going to do a class of screen reader only. So we want the screen reader to read this out to a user who uses a screen reader, but visually you're just going to see plus and minus buttons, and this is the correct way to do it. So let's add the minus button, or the remove, it looks like it says here. And again, aria hidden true. And we want to put the decrease, we'll just add it to a span with a class of screen reader only. The other thing that we need to do here is, if you're having trouble styling your SVGs, consider making sure that your SVGs are set to display block. For years, I had trouble styling SVGs, and the reason was, I'm embarrassed to admit this, I didn't actually check until just a few months ago, well, maybe sometime last summer, I didn't check to see what the default display property of an SVG was. The default display is inline. Inline elements are very difficult to style because you can't add width, height, margin, padding. You just can't do normal things to them like you can a block level element. So once I actually checked to see what the display property was of an SVG, and I started changing them to display block, it changed it rocked my world, basically. It changed everything. It was a huge game changer. The other thing that we want to do is, you have complete control over styling the fill and or the stroke of an SVG. Don't forget that. But if you're having trouble styling the color of an SVG, make sure that you don't have an inline color. Ionicons notoriously have an inline color. So fill none, stroke current color. We want to keep the attribute, but we want to remove the value. So these don't have fill. These are styled with a stroke. So we're just going to take out this value. And you can see now that these are blue, and of course we're going to style these. The other thing that I like to do in my styles is, as a global style, I will set the fill to red and the stroke to blue. And that's just so I know which is which, because sometimes an SVG has fill, sometimes an SVG has stroke. And I don't like to guess which one. So if I do this globally, I know, okay, these are stroke. I don't have to guess. So that's why I do that. Let's go ahead and style these buttons, because obviously the other thing I do is I set my SVGs to 3 by 3. That's just to get my page under control, to just rein the page in a little bit. I do end up changing the SVG sizes based on whatever it is that I'm styling. So we'll go ahead and do that. We don't need this anymore. So we have, so I think we want to style these. We can style these globally as a button with an SVG. I think that makes the most sense. I don't think there's anything special about the increment or the decrement buttons. I think these would be the styles that would apply to pretty much anything. Any button with an SVG is what I'm trying to say. So here are our button styles. I'll go right here. Button, SVG. These are obviously way too big. So let's get a sense of what they should be. I think that's too small. I knew that would be too small. So maybe 1.25. 1.25. We could be a little more mathematical about this as well. So if we know that our text, where's the reset text? So if our font, I think the font size is 16 pixels, which is technically 1 rem. So I don't think there's a mathematical way to deal with that necessarily. So our reset button, I have to think about this for a second. Is there a mathematical way to deal with that? I don't think so. And these are all display inline block. But clearly these aren't lining up correctly. That's fine. We can force that. So we might want to say something like, let's start with the alignment issue. So if a button has an SVG, then we want the buttons to have some vertical alignment, because the buttons are already, I don't think I changed the display property of buttons. Nope, we didn't. They're inline block. That means you can use vertical align. Let's see if middle works. Almost. These are not lining up. Text bottom. Yeah, that doesn't work. Or we could just do bottom. So we can force them to align on the bottom. That's probably going to be the best way to do it. And then we're just going to have to tinker with the size of the SVG to get these the same size. Because the text is 1 rem, but a 1 rem button is clearly too small. An SVG rather, right? They're not the same thing. And we know 1.25 is too big, so we might be better off with like a pixel value. So 16 pixels, we know that that's it feels a little janky to me. So that makes that button 54 by 46. And that button is, I don't care about the width, but that's 46.4 is the height. Yes, I could just make the height of those buttons 46.4. That's not the point. So that's about as close as I'm going to get it. So I'm going to make the SVGs in the buttons 18.5 pixels by 18.5. And then when we include the padding, that's pretty darn close to the height of a button with 1 rem of padding and 1 rem. You know what it could be? It could be the line height. Yeah, it could be the line height. So if the text still has line height inside the button. So how much you want to bet that if we change the line height in the buttons to 1, because it's 1.65 by default, that would equalize the height of the button. And then if this was, do I have this right? No way. Okay, so line height 1, and then we'll just say bottom. What in the frick? That worked. Okay, I didn't actually change the size. Hang on. So if our SVG is 1 rem by 1 rem and then the button has 1 rem of padding, and then the button font is 1 rem with a line height of 1. Look at that, it is equal. 52 by 44, 76.51, that's the width by 44, 52 by 44. We solved the mathematical height of a button. We just have to set the text or the line height in the button to 1 so we don't have the extra height. And then what the SVG can be the same size as the font and it's the same height. Do we love that? Yes, we love that. Okay. So I do want the SVG to be a little bit bigger. I think we can do that and then just change the padding. Well, let's get the hover right. This is so exciting. So the stroke is going to be white. No, it's going to be teal. Is it dark teal or teal? Yeah, so it's the dark version for the color. So we have to do the same thing here. Dark teal. It's a little small. And then let's make sure that we have our hover active focus. So the button focus, oops, the button hover. This is so exciting. Is anybody else as excited as I am right now? Whoops. To make this fun little discovery where you don't have to like get all janky with your pixel 0.5 values. Stroke, so we want the hover active focus to be white. And then let's make sure that we have a transition for the stroke. So we're going to transition the stroke. 300 milliseconds. Ease in, out. All right. So here's my theory. We need to make the SVGs a little bit bigger. So if we make the SVGs 1.25 rems, that's obviously going to change the height of the button. So let's do something else then. We already are doing a vertical alignment if a button has an SVG. So if a button has an SVG, let's also change the padding. So we're adding 1 rem of padding, which would be a total of 3 rems on the width or the height. So 3 minus 1.25 is 1.75 divided by 2 is 0.875. So 0.875 rems. That'll make the SVG bigger, a little less padding, but we should, no, gosh darn it. Did I get the math wrong? Hang on. 3. So 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3. Oh, I think actually it's 2 minus, no, wait a second. It's 2 minus, hang on. Yeah, it's 2 minus 1.25 equals 0.75 divided by 2 is 0.375. Hang on. Why am I getting this wrong? $1.25. Yeah, it is 3. 3 minus 1.25, right? Oh, it is 48 by 48. Is it because... Yeah, we do need the buttons to be a minimum of 48 by 48 for accessibility. Why was I overlooking that? Don't mind me while I overthink. Which means the reset button is never going to be 48. Unless I increase the line height, which right now is 1.65. Oh, is it 1.25? What's the line height of a button? Line height normal, but it's crossed out. That's crossed out. Well, at 1.15, it's coming from normalize. Interesting. Okay. So what gets our buttons, what line height gets our buttons to 48 pixels tall? Because that's what I need in order to style a button with an SVG. Yes, I could just set the height of the buttons. I understand that. I don't want to though, but I could. But I like it when the math is mathing. Okay. Indulge me. So we know that normalize is giving our buttons a line height of 1.15, and with 1 rem of padding and 1 rem text size, that makes our buttons 46.4 pixels tall. I mean, I feel like it's easier to just say width 48 pixels or height 48 pixels, or 3 rems, whichever you prefer. And then probably just for good measure, we'll say with auto, right? So we're just saying, hey, buttons. And then we can make sure that all of the buttons we would want all of the buttons then to be probably vertical align middle. That would work now. Is that going to make the text align in the middle though? No. Yeah, that's not really working here though, is it? Well, honestly, this is probably also getting all I wanted to do was put some SVGs in the buttons. Gogo Elmo is off to his meeting. Emilio is here. I hope you have your internet back. If my boss walks in, we are working on the Q2 budget. This page is coming long. I'm down with this plan. I can flip into Q2 budget mode on demand, no problem. Just you tell me when. So let's do this, because we are officially in the overthinking. We are officially in the overthinking mode. How about for the counter card, we put in some values that make sure that these are working together. That's what we're going to do. So let's take this out. You know what I'm really tempted to do? But I don't want to reset the line height. Yeah, I don't want to mess with the line height because that screwed this stuff up. Let's just do that. to this. You know what? We still have the tap target. Let's make sure that the button, if a button has an SVG, okay, we're going to do this. We're just going to change the height for the counter card. That's what we're going to do. Yeah, because I'm going to put another SVG in the accordion. So we're going to style these for the counter card. Okay. Because I just think it's too much overthinking now. So the counter card button has an SVG. I don't even think that we need to do the has. We can just say vertical align bottom. That's going to align all the buttons to the bottom, which is what we want. Let's also change the height to 3 rems. Let's make the width auto. There we go. Now we're 48 by 48. It's only impacting these buttons. That was very dramatic. Yeah, I think that that's fine. So really what we're doing is we're just making sure that this button and this button has that tap target. And it doesn't impact any other buttons. I don't even think there are any other buttons here with SVGs other than the accordion. So we'll go ahead and add that plus sign, the plus SVG, and then when the accordion's active, it's just going to twist it like 45 degrees. So, okay, you know what though? Sometimes you have to have that experience, and that's okay. That's all part of the process. That's all part of the process. And I personally enjoy that. I enjoy it. I enjoy sitting here and tinkering. I enjoy it. I like it. So there we go. Okay. Accordion. So here's our button, and we'll go ahead and add our SVG here. And again, aria hidden, true. And one moment, please. Hold, please. Okay. Let's also make sure that this is in a span. I don't think we need a class for this, but I'm going to flexbox this button so I can align these the way I want to. And then we have to take out this current color attribute, so we have control over the styling. And then we'll do the same thing here. We'll add that plus button. Whoops. And I'm just going to put that in a span. Again, aria hidden true, and we take out that stroke value. So now you can see that clearly those need to be styled. So let's find our accordion styles. And oh, you know what else we need to do? We are going to need to we need to make sure that we have our navy and pink styles for this SVG. I overlooked that, so let's do that really quick. So navy and pink are body classes, so they have to come first. So we'll say navy, and then it's really just this right here. And the stroke is going to be dark navy. And we need to do pink. And the stroke is going to be dark pink. And we can test that really quick. So teal is our default. We'll add navy. Oh, and we need to add, I think we just need to add this specificity here. There we go. You know, sometimes the cursor in Chrome just doesn't work, and I don't know why. Right here, cursor pointer for all buttons. And it doesn't work anywhere. It doesn't work here on links. I don't know. It just happens. Why? Why, Chrome? Why? You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna close this. I'm gonna close this, and I'm gonna relaunch it and see if it matters. Although it's just wonky. I don't know, it's just weird. Chrome is weird. Clash of Clans is here. Hello, welcome. Glad you could join us. All right, let's relaunch this. There we go. I don't know. I know how to use things that work, not things that don't work. So now our cursor is changing to a pointer. Whatever. Whatever. All right. Accordion. So let's get that styled. And we do have an accordion section here. Here's our accordion. So the accordion button, I think, has a class of accordion trigger. So it's in an H3. The button has a class accordion trigger. So let's make sure that, so I'm actually going to do, we've got the span and the SVG. Well, let's style the SVG first. accordion trigger SVG. I'm going to do the same thing. Width, I want it to be a little bit bigger. And I don't care how big the panels are, so I'm not as concerned about this. Whoop. And it's a stroke, so the color is going to be, I think, teal. Well, we're in our navy era. Well, but we should really use teal because that's our default. So let's switch back to teal. There we go. And then let's make this display flex. The flex flow is row no wrap. The justify content is space between, which should put those items at either end, and then align items can be center. There we go. Now let's make sure that we have a hover. Do we want these to be a little bigger? Yeah, a little bigger. Look at that. Look how nice and tidy that is. And you can use a span, which is an inline element, but it doesn't matter because flex just sort of takes it over. Beautiful. Looks good. So let's make sure that when we are hovering on the accordion trigger, which is the button element, we are triggering that SVG. So accordion trigger, we want a focus, hover, active, and we're going to change the color to white. The stroke, changing the stroke to white, and then let's make sure, well actually we're triggering the SVG, so we forgot something here, didn't we? So when we focus on the button, we change the stroke of the SVG. When we hover on the button, we change the stroke of the SVG. When the button is active, we change the stroke of the SVG. And then we can also transition that. So we're transitioning the stroke, 300 milliseconds, ease in, out. That's just a transition that I like. You can use whatever works for you. There we go. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that when the accordion item is active, we rotate this button 45 degrees. So just a little indication that it's open, right? So here's our active styles for the accordion panel. So the accordion item is the parent container. So we'll say active. And then the accordion trigger SVG, we're going to rotate that. So we need to set a baseline. So we're going to transform, rotate, and I'm going to say 0 degrees. That's like our baseline, right? So when the accordion trigger SVG is active, accordion trigger SVG, we're going to rotate 45 degrees. And we can also transition that. So we transition the stroke. We are also going to transition the transform. Also 300 milliseconds, also ease in out. What is this? Why did I do this? Active footer. What's active about the footer? Did I type active, just type active there by mistake? I think I did. Yeah. Okay, so you can see there, it's rotated 45 degrees. So we'll see this in action here. So here's our accordion item active. I'll just delete that, hit enter. Look at that. Which way do we want that to rotate? I want it to go in the other direction, so I'm going to do minus 45 degrees. I'm going to take that out. Whoops. What do we think? I love it. So there's our accordions styled. So when we get to day 3, we're just writing the JavaScript to handle these click events, right? Look at that. We love it. Okay, so we have about an hour left, which is plenty of time to work on our modal trigger. I've done many a modal, actually. And ChatGPT did not give me the element that I am going to use. We're going to use the dialog element. Let's look at the markup that it gave me. Oh, and let's see here. Hello, welcome. What is an SVG? And Amelia says, SVG is like an image that is vectored, meaning no matter how large or small you make it, the formulas of the shapes always scale correctly without distortion. Never done a trigger, excited. Yeah, click events, baby. Click events. We love a click event. So let's take a look. Let's define the scalable vector graphics. An SVG is an XML-based markup language for describing two-dimensional based vector graphics. I'm going to put this in the chat. Feel free to read up on the old SVGs. Curious here. Hello, welcome. Asking, do I remember you? Maybe, you know, a few months ago, YouTube changed the chat from display names to usernames. It is much unless you're here every single day, it's difficult for me to remember sometimes who is who if the username isn't really unique. So I apologize for that. I remember a lot of people, and if somebody isn't here for a while, sometimes I don't always remember till I see their name. So, but thank you for joining. Thank you for coming to hang out in the chat. Of course, I appreciate all of you. Do me a favor. This is probably a good time to remind people to like the video if you haven't already. It helps the algorithm. It helps push this type of content out to more people who might be interested in this thing that we do here. Subscribe if you're not already. The channel's growing. I would love to wake up someday and see 10,000 subscribers, but I don't think that's going to happen. I've accepted that. But we are growing steadily in a way that I'm really pleased with. So, and of course I can't do this without you all. And if you if you didn't see at the beginning of the stream what it is that we're working on, I'm going to do a challenge starting in April called 30 Days of Vanilla JavaScript. So we're basically building the platform that these challenges will live on. Every day at the end of the day, I will deploy whatever it is that we completed, whatever challenge it is that we completed. I am using ChatGPT for the prompts. ChatGPT knows me very well at this point in my career. It knows exactly how to start us out slow with a button counter and work up from there. So who knows what we'll be doing in 30 days? Literally anything's possible, I guess. So this website, the whole point of this website that we're building now is to support the project and support those challenges. And Kiri says, I was the guy who asked, how is the front end development will be in the next 5 years? I'm asked that question often. I'm asked that question a lot. Unfortunately, that is not a distinct question. I get that question in probably every other stream. So I do recognize the name Kiri, though. I do recognize the name Kiri. So I'm glad that you decided to come back and hang out with us. I'm thrilled for anybody who decides to watch and, of course, hang out in the chat. And Emilio says, we'll get there for sure. Yes, we will. So it's a thing, you know, it's a process, right? Taking a course or watching a tutorial doesn't automatically mean that you know how to do the work. Learning how to do this type of work, it takes a long time. You have to practice. That is literally the entire point of this channel. It's to practice and get better. I'm 13 years into my career. I've had an amazing career as a front-end developer. I've had so many wonderful opportunities that it's not slowing down anytime soon. But I need practice too. I have to keep practicing just like everybody else. So whether you're new at this or you're more experienced, keep practicing, keep working on projects. Projects are the best way to learn, in my opinion. So there's that. Okay, let's get back to it. Whoops, wrong one. And one moment, please. Okay, so I really want to use the modal, the dialogue element. That is not the markup. That is not the markup that ChatGPT gave us. So we're gonna do something different here. So let's look at dialogue, the dialogue element. Widely available. Has a lot of, it's part of, since it's a widely available element and with a lot of attributes that we can use. So again, think of it, when you use elements that have built-in attributes that the browser recognizes, take advantage of that stuff. You don't need to use JavaScript for things that live natively either in CSS or the HTML attributes themselves, right? So let's look at some of these attributes. Closed by specifies the types of user actions that can be used to close the dialog element. This attribute distinguishes 3 methods by which a dialog might be closed. A light dismiss user action in which the dialog is closed when the user clicks or taps outside of it. Here's another thing. Dialog is going to give us, isn't it like the backdrop attribute? It's a pseudo element that we can style. We can also use, so here's the JavaScript API elements that we can use. We can either use show or show modal. Open indicates that the dialog box is active and is available for interaction. If the open attribute is not set, the dialog box will not be visible to the user. It is recommended to use the show or show modal method to render dialogues rather than the open attribute. So that's good to know. If a dialog is opened using the open attribute, it is non-modal. So we'll definitely use JavaScript for show or show modal. And there is a difference in what happens when you use one or the other. And it's the same with closing it. Well, no, I think actually there's just close. JavaScript can be used to display and close the dialog element. You can use the show modal method to display a modal dialog and the show method to display a non-modal dialog. So we want a modal, not the non-modal. The dialog box can be closed using the closed method or using the dialog method when submitting a form that is nested within the dialog element. Modal dialogs can also be closed by pressing the escape key. So I think this is going to be like built in for us. We'll test this today. So, well, we're not going to be able to test it today because we're not doing the JavaScript today. But we'll use the open attribute for at least the styling, right? Okay, let's just get our element in here. So we want to change this to dialog and this to dialog. And we don't need the role or the aria. We don't need the role if we're using the element. Aria, modal, true. Okay, that's fair. And then I think just for the purposes of styling, we can use the open attribute, and that's just going to help us with styling. So let's see here where we're at. We have to hang on. Modal overlay. No, we don't want this. Why aren't we using? Oh, because this has hidden on it. That's why. This is not the markup that I would use for a dialog. Why would ChatGPT give us markup that doesn't use a dialog element? I don't understand that. So let's just go back here. Okay. Let's ask ChatGPT why they gave us this markup. Let me pull it up here. I just want to make sure that this is the one where they actually gave us the markup. I think it is. Yes. Okay. So in the kitchen sink markup, you gave me this modal HTML. Why aren't we using the dialog element? Good catch. Yeah, I know. You should be asking that. Short answer, you can absolutely use Dialog, and for your project, you probably should. I didn't use it because I defaulted to the works everywhere, no surprises pattern. Why I gave you the div-based modal. That pattern is predictable, fully controllable, historically necessary before Dialog support was solid. It avoids browser quirks, needing to explain show modal, close, etc. methods, edge cases around styling backdrop. Basically, lowest friction for a general audience. But here's the reality in 2026. Dialog is well supported, accessible out of the box, less code, closer to native behavior, and for your content, vanilla JavaScript, teaching fundamentals, it's actually a better fit. What Dialog gives you for free with this, you get built-in focus trapping, escape to close native, proper accessibility semantics, backdrop via the backdrop pseudo element, no need for aria modal and role dialog, etc. Right here, I knew all of that, didn't I? Okay, don't show us the JavaScript. Stop. We're supposed to do that ourselves. That's it. No class toggling, no overlay management. The trade-offs. Why some people still avoid it. Be aware of these. Styling the backdrop. Okay, that's not... Stop it. Positioning quirks. No. Okay. Okay. No JavaScript, please. Remember the challenge. Also, I didn't ask for all of this. Please remember I have a fair amount of experience. You're right. I gave you a broader beginner style explanation than you asked for, and I shouldn't have included JavaScript when the whole point is that the stream challenge is the JavaScript. Direct answer. Okay, so we are going to use Dialog. Okay, so give me some good Dialog HTML markup to style. Also, if I add the open attribute, will that show the dialog just for styling? Good. Yeah, we just add open manually, and then that renders the dialog. No JavaScript required until we actually get to the challenge and do the click event ourselves. Perfect for doing the layout in the CSS. So here we go. Beautiful. Don't be afraid to get in there and tell ChatGPT what's what. Let's tighten this up a little. So we're not using a button secondary, are we? I think, oh, maybe we're just using button and button secondary. Okay. So here's our modal, and really, this looks a little crazy, but it's perfect. So here's our dialog right here. It's this layer that's sitting right on top. And where's our backdrop? I don't see it here. Where's our backdrop? I don't see it in the browser. Dialog open. Where's my backdrop? Maybe I just have to add it in the CSS. I don't remember having to do that before. I thought it was just there. So, fine. So this is going to be Modal, Dialog, and the class is Modal. So hopefully backdrop just appears. We would say, I think it's automatically fixed. So we would say width 100%, height 100%, and then background color, we'll do an RGBA, and we'll do 0, 0, 0. With, we'll do 50% alpha transparency. Okay, why isn't that showing up automatically? I bet it's because we didn't trigger show modal. We're just using the attribute. And that's, I'm almost positive that's what's happening. Let's double check. Oh, a couple important structural choices. Okay, use a real heading. Footer for actions, fine. Oh, here we go. Backdrop styling, you'll need this. That replaces, so do I have to just do this? It's not actually putting it in the browser though. I'm almost positive it's because we're opening it with an open attribute. And we didn't use the method show modal. Or is it, yeah, show modal. Oh, I need to continue reading, don't I? One subtle thing to be aware of when using open, it does not behave like a true modal. No focus trap, no blocking, but visually it's exactly what you need for styling. If you want slightly more real default state, you can leave it closed and temporarily add and then remove open later. Yeah. I'm not seeing backdrop in the browser. Is that because I'm using the open attribute and not the show modal method? Yes. Yeah, you can only trigger backdrop with show modal. So maybe we can do something like, let's just fake it just for the sake of styling. So what if we did dialog. We'll just do like an after, just so we can get it styled. We're not going to be able to test. Well, that's fine. We can test the accessibility and the escape key and all that when we actually do the JavaScript, right? We're just trying to style a background. That's all. So we'll do position fixed top. We'll just do inset. Inset 0. Width 100%. Height 100%, and we'll do this. And this will probably work, right? There we go. We just have to adjust the z-index. So that can be 0. We'll set that to 0 because it's after, and then we need to make sure that the dialog, this is just going to be temporary, position relative, z-index 1. I think that'll push it up. Also, it should be, this should be, oh, the backdrop is fixed. This should be, this should also be fixed. I feel like this should also be fixed, right? There we go. Probably it would be better to put the after for the sake of styling on the section. Because once we do show modal, this is going to show up. This is just going to be there. So let's do this. Let's say dialog let's say section has dialog. We'll just do the after on the section. So if a section has a modal dialog, we'll put this in. It's fixed. I think it's gonna, yep, it sits behind, just like that. So literally, this is it. This is done. We've got it now. We know what the styles are going to look like. So we can adjust these. So do we need it to be darker? Whoops. And it's interesting. It doesn't sit over top of this though, does it? Probably because, so we want that to be a z-index of 1. And then we would want this to be a z-index of 2. Ask and you shall receive. There we go. The other thing that I think we will want to do is I feel like if the dialog is open, I feel like we should say overflow hidden on the body, right? Or maybe if the dialog's open, we add a class to the body. Let's ask ChatGPT. Okay, no problem. I can still style a backdrop, not that hard. When we use the show modal method, does any attribute get added to the dialog element? Yeah, no new attribute is added beyond open. When you call show modal, the browser adds the open attribute and puts the dialog into a modal state internally. But that modal versus non-modal distinction is not reflected as an attribute you can see or style against. Okay. That's fine, because I'll also add a body class to help with outside styling. Please don't give me code. I'm just thinking out loud. Yeah. So probably what I'll do then is when we use the show modal method, open is going to be added as an attribute, but this doesn't really help me. I mean, unless could we do something like body has dialog open? Would that even work? I don't know. Body has dialog open. That feels way too complex for has. Overflow hidden. No. Is that going to work? What in the frick? That worked. Look at. That worked. So here is our CSS solution to make sure that the page doesn't scroll when the dialog is open. I can't believe that this worked. I thought that has had to be way simpler than that. All right. So then if we take out open, and this is temporary, right? That's just temporary. And then if we have to do any additional styles for the backdrop, once we have that method. So this would, honestly, this would just be for, I mean, we could just put in, we could just have these styles here for And then can we just trigger it ourselves in the browser? There it is. That works. Wow, it's like we're real developers. And Kiri says, can I get this challenge link? Well, the GitHub repository is linked in the description. So if you want to take a look at that, this site itself is not deployed yet. But the GitHub repository is in the description. So Rayhan is here. Welcome. Hello. And good night. I know that there are a lot of people overseas who stay up late to watch. I appreciate you all. And I totally understand if you're tired and need to go to bed. Believe me, I understand. So, this is exciting. I think this is exciting. Yeah, I like this. Okay. This works. Okay, so let's finish our styling. So now that we understand the functionality, hopefully you can see why I put so much effort and energy into the markup, the semantic markup, and CSS. I mean, I hope you can see that, because isn't this going to make the JavaScript part of this so much easier, right? Okay, so this is just temporary, but let's go ahead and enable this. And now we just have to style this. So what do we want this to look like? Here is our dialog right here. So what are here's a whole bunch of styles. Part of the user agent style sheet, the browser default. What do we have here? The width and the height are just fit content. That's handy. I should be using that more often. It's got a border. So we have default colors. We might as well use them, right? Okay, so let's write some default styles here. For this, I'm going to use the Modal class. We can stick with fit content, right? That works for the width and the height. We could do our background color of teal, and then we'll make sure that we put in our default colors. We could do a border, 2 pixels, solid white, and then we would want probably the color to also be white if we have a dark background. I like it. And then our buttons are basically styled. We don't really have a secondary button, so I'm going to take that class out. Cancel and confirm. What more do we need than this? This is placeholder content for your modal. You can drop forms, text, or anything else here. What else is there besides this? This looks just fine to me. So let's go ahead and do a navy and a pink modal. Navy is our body class. Background color, navy, pink, modal, background color, pink. All right, let's go ahead and change. We'll test this quick. So here's our navy body class. Oh, beautiful. And here's our pink body class. You guys, what? I'm telling you. It's like we're real developers. It's like we're real developers. I don't know if we're going to need these styles right here. So we have a good base set of styles for this modal dialog. So if we need to make a couple of changes when we're writing our JavaScript, which I don't think is going to be complicated at all, we certainly can. Okay, so let's take out our open attribute and we'll go ahead and hide this. So we'll put a little note here. This is for backdrop styling only. And then we'll just remove that after we have everything in place. All right, what's next? And we have a button here. Perfect. Okay, tabs. Well, we're getting a little short on time. Okay, well, let's at least attempt to work on our tabs. So tabbed content. Very similar to, in my opinion, very similar to accordions. So here's our tab list with buttons. And then these are the tab panels. So let's go ahead. I think we could give, yeah, here's our buttons. Let's just go ahead and give these each a class of button. I mean, is that what we want to do? And then here's our panels. So I think these should each have a class of tab panel. So we've got tabs, tab list, button, and then we've got tab panel, tab panel, tab panel. So these should be, the tab panel should be position absolute. So I'm going to give these I feel like these also need their own container to be positioned against, right? So div tab panels. And then let's change this class to tab item, just to make it a little easier. So now we have tab panels, and then I think these should be absolutely positioned against the tab panels container. Absolute positioning is tricky because it kind of takes things out of the flow. You kind of have to define a height and a width, right? What did we, how did we do this last time? Oh, it's kind of like a slider where the active tab is actually not position absolute, it's position relative. Yeah. It's exactly like a slider. Let's refresh our memories. So what's the last thing that we worked on? I think it was our scenic project where we had was this it? Or was it, I think it was our, I think it was the project that we were still working on. Go back. Yeah, right here. So I feel like tabs are the exact same as a slider. So the parent container is position relative. And then the individual slides are position absolute. Inset 0 is shorthand for top, bottom, left, right. So stretch that container. And then we've got width 100%, height 0, opacity 0, pointer events none. I think we're going to want to use visibility hidden also for screen readers, which I didn't even really think of that for this. So this project technically isn't done. We're going to finish this in May. We'll want to revisit this. And then for the active slide, it's position relative, height auto, opacity 100%, and the container is as big as the amount of content. I feel like this is the exact same thing. So let's do it. Let's do it. Tab panel. So I'm just going to start with the tab panels class. And we'll say position relative. I mean, we need to say visibility hidden, so it doesn't. So it's, well, but we'll do that for the individual items. So inset 0, width. No, Angela, stop it. Width 100%, height auto. Height auto. Margin padding, list style none, z index 0. Now we have the tab items. Tab item, it's going to be position absolute, inset 0, width 100%, visibility hidden. So unless you're on that tab, it's not accessible by a screen reader or keyboard focus. So visibility hidden, opacity 0, position absolute, inset 0, width 100%, height 0. But the tab item that's active, tab item active, so we'll have a button that's active, and then we'll have the corresponding tab item that's active. So for example, button, tab ARIA controls right here, tab panel 1, ID, tab panel 1. But we've also got a lot of attributes here to match up, but this is what I'm going to match up. The ARIA controls to the ID. So if this button, if we click on this button and the ARIA controls tab panel 1 equals tab item ID tab panel 1, we're going to add an active class to this button and we're going to add an active class to this tab. So it's going to be tab item active. And then this would be visibility, visible, opacity, 1, position, relative, right? Height, auto, just like that. So all of these are hidden because none of them is active. So let's add active. Overview content goes here. And then if we take out active, active here, notes content goes here. Yeah. And we would want probably by default the first item to be active, right? So let's just add an active class here, and we'll add an active class here. And then we can style. So if we know that a button is active, what does that mean? Well, let's just add that to our buttons. So if we know that a button is active, the background is transparent and the color is white. Button.active. Those styles already exist. So here's an active button, here's an active panel. There's lots of ways to style tabs. I think tabs traditionally have like that file folder type look. This is how I'm going to do it. So if you have another way that you want to do it, go for it. Knock yourself out. This is how I'm going to do it because I'm lazy and I want to use the styles that already exist. So let's just give this maybe a little bit of padding. And I don't know, we can give it like a border or something, right? So here's the tab panels. So let's give this a border of 2 pixels, solid. Let's go white, and then let's give this some padding, just like a rem of padding all the way around. There we go. Let's give it some space also. So margin, we'll give it a rem of padding on the top, nothing on the left and right. I don't know. And then we can remove some, since this has margin on the bottom, maybe we'll just do this. 1 rem on the top, 1 rem on the left and right, 0 on the bottom. There we go. Maybe just a smudge on the bottom. Less of a smudge. There, that looks pretty good. What do we think? And then we can put extra content in here. So let's try it with a little extra content. We'll just put in some lorem ipsum there. And maybe we have, it's good to test it with a little variety of content, right? And maybe we'll put a little more here. It's a lot. Now we see that that's growing nicely. So we'll take this active class out, and then this would get an active class. We could take that active class out. We can put that active class in. Look at that. It's beautiful. What do we think? I think our tabs are styled. Our tabs are styled. Nice. So what did we get done today? We did, we got our SVGs in our button with a lot of overthinking. I wouldn't have it any other way. Lots of overthinking. We got our SVGs into our accordions. We styled our modal. We styled our tabs. You know what I would like is, I think that this does not need to be so wide. Let's go back to, this is a 27-inch monitor, so it's pretty big, but the width of this wrap is 1200 pixels, 75 rems. Let's bring that in a little bit. I'm thinking 1000. We're not centering it. I think that was a good decision to not center it. So 1000 divided by 16 is 62.5. 62.5 rems. There we go. I think this looks just fine. This is a huge monitor. So I think if you were on a laptop, this would be kind of the traditional experience right here. Okay, so what do we have left to style? The alert toast, the filterable list, the theme toggle. So this is like a light dark, right? We've done that. Contact form is done. Task list is basically, I don't think there's much to do for the task list. And then this is the about section. And then we've got some layout stuff to do. Let's look at the calendar. Where are we at for time? Okay, so we have we have two more days this weekend for styling, and then the 31st is our deployment day. Can we get this all styled in 2 days? So the answer is yes, we can, but it's definitely going to take longer than 2 hours per day. So I am going to plan to be here for extra time because there's layout things that need to be done here. Not a lot, but a little. So let's plan our day for Saturday. I'm kind of thinking that Saturday we just need to jump into the layout stuff. I have an idea in my head, so I don't think it's going to take that long, and I'm going to do my very, very best to not overthink things. But we need to get all of the rest of these items styled this weekend, and I need to implement the layout changes that I want to implement. So the key is going to be not overthinking. That's really going to be the key, because I don't want to spend any time on our deployment day worrying about styling. I just want to deploy, and I really need the 30th off to like get ready, because technically it's going to be 31 days of streaming, including the deployment on the 31st, right? Yeah. And honestly, I don't know what we're going to do about the additional UI elements, but maybe we have enough styles that doesn't matter. I'm also thinking about some of these challenges that I think are going to be straightforward. So let's not be afraid to maybe let's not be afraid that if we get a challenge done quickly, that we're not doubling up on challenges, but that we're building out additional UI elements as needed. Because I don't know beyond day 10 how much more complex things are going to get. So I don't know what additional styling that we need to do. We haven't asked for it yet. So, okay. Well, that's that then. I think I'm good for today then. What do we think? I love it. We got a lot done. Everybody, do me a favor. If you haven't yet, would you be so kind as to like this video? It helps the algorithm, helps push this kind of content out to people who might be interested in it. helps the channel grow. Subscribe if you're not already. I'm generally here 4 days a week, Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday. And of course, for the month of April, I will be here every single day. This is the 30 Days of Vanilla JavaScript. We are building the site that supports the project. I'm going to stream every day for 30 days. This is an attempt for me to get better at JavaScript. I have to tell you though, just in the styling, thinking about the approach that I'm going to use and how I style things, I'm like definitely not giving myself enough credit for the JavaScript skills that I do have. So let's cross our fingers that this goes well. I think it will. I think it will. So with that being said, everybody have a great rest of your day wherever you are. I love all of you fine people, and I will see you on Saturday. Bye-bye.